welcome to the Natural View. I'm Maggie Jacqua. I'm the content director of Whole Foods Magazine. And today we're going to talk about some botanicals that are traditional, but really emerging now and trending now. So I'm excited to dive in. My guest today is Ramsey Atallah. He is the Chief Science and R&D Officer at Botanic Tonics. Thanks for joining me, Ramsey.
So happy to be here, Maggie.
All right, so to kick things off, we want to tell our listeners a little bit about the company, who is Botanic Tonics, and what makes your products unique.
Yeah, so Botanic Tonics, we're a plant science company. So we sell a 2-ounce and we load this thing with botanicals. And what we're trying to do is basically, you mentioned like the tradition of botanicals. We're fusing together essentially like, the function, tradition, and science of these plants into one little 2-ounce bottle. So that's the gist of what we're doing. We have one main product that we sell all over the country, wherever we can. And it's been an amazing journey so far. It's been a ton of fun. Look, I've only been with the company for 8 months. And the type of work we've been doing in terms of the research on our botanicals and on the functional effect of our products, really exciting place to be right now. So functional beverages, I think, it's a cool category.
It's hot, yeah, for sure. So I want to dive in a little bit more into the product, about the kind of scientific research and development that goes in. The product is called Feel Free. What goes into developing it? Can you talk to us kind of about your process as Chief Science and R&D Officer?
Yeah, so the start of it is basically getting a grip on what do we know about these plants from the traditional perspective and then just from nature in general. So traditional wise, our 2 main ingredients, first and foremost, is kava. We're a very kava-centric company. And I think what we're doing that's so unique is putting these kava ingredients in the 2-ounce energy format. So kava, it's been native to the Polynesian Islands, Hawaii, Vanuatu, Fiji for thousands of years, and it's been used consistently. And they use a ton of it, right? So what we do with the kava is we basically get an extract of it and have that in our 2-ounce bottle. So the tradition of kava use is essentially based around communal, social, and sort of celebratory almost. It's generally it's a drink that's been used in a lot of circumstances, and it's really been spreading from those Polynesian communities to the United States mainland, Europe, and beyond. The other plant we have is kratom. Kratom is a tree native to also the Indo-Pacific region, but think Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. And when we talk about kratom, we're talking about the leaf of the tree. So we actually have dried leaf kratom directly into our product. So when you take something like ours, you actually are getting a plant-based energy drink. There's no caffeine, there's no added sugar. So we think that, or we found that our customers really enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, that's another hot button there, is the energy and the calm energy and not having the jitters of caffeine, and also plant-based. So you're hitting on so many things that consumers are really looking for right now. I'd like to talk a little bit more about kava and kratom. A lot of our viewers in the natural product space will be familiar with these botanicals, but can you give us an overview for anybody who's not? And also, can you talk a little bit more about how they're working together in the formula?
Yeah, so kava is a shrub type plant. And when we consume kava, we're actually doing the root of the plant. So it's the main root system and its lateral roots. These are rich in what are called kava lactones. These are compounds that are unique to kava, and they have a fascinating effect. The primary kava lactone is kavane, right? Named after the plant, of course. And its function, it essentially naturally supplements your GABA system. So GABA, G-A-B-A. If you don't, I'm going to give you a quick pharmacology lesson here. Your GABA system is like the natural brake pedal for the brain. So if you've ever felt overstimulated or overwhelmed, often what's literally happening is there's this electric potential in your brain, your neurons, that's so high, it's overfiring and you're overthinking and it feels like everything's happening at once. What the GABA system does is, you have your GABA, it binds directly to the receptor in your brain. and it brings in a bunch of chlorine, negatively charged chlorine that reduces that action potential, and it literally calms you down. So kava doesn't directly bind like GABA, but kava and kavain make it easier for GABA to bind. So even in the traditional supplement sense, it really is supplementing the natural function of the GABA system. And this is like this tracks with essentially the traditional description of what people feel when they take the product. It relaxes you. It makes you feel calm and social and not overstimulated, right? You don't feel overwhelmed. Kratom, on the other hand, similar but different. It doesn't touch the GABA system. It primarily is in two areas. Is number one, the alpha-2 adrenergic system. Again, we're going pharmacology here. But this is what gives it its stimulatory feeling, right? And then the other side is it's a weak, biased mu-opioid agonist, which actually reduces your excitability as well. So you think about the traditional use of kratom. I didn't mention that yet. So traditionally, kratom was consumed past 300, 400, 500 years in those regions in the Indo-Pacific I talked about, where it was most commonly used by people like farmers, laborers, fishermen, who on a hot or humid day and they needed to know they had to finish the day, they would pick some fresh kratom leaves and just chew it and increase their tolerance, right? So that's what the two of these do together. You have the kava that kind of quiets things down, helps you relax a little bit. The kratom, it gives you the stimulatory feeling from the alpha-2 and increase in tolerance. So the combination is that the noise goes down and you're in full control of your focus and you can lock it in the way that you like. What we hear from people that take Feel Free is when you take a Feel Free, you really feel present. And that's really exactly how we want people to use the product. It's an intentional product, right? You use it when you want to feel in the moment, that you can direct your focus how you please.
That is such an excellent benefit. And talking about kratom, we're hearing so much about it lately. And I was just reading, I don't know if you had a chance to see it. It was just out today. I'll give a shout out to a fellow industry reporter, Josh Long, who had a report about the International Kratom Symposium that was held at the University of Florida. He attended that and he gave a report on that. But really looking at these major institutions like the University of Florida and Johns Hopkins, he mentioned Columbia, who are doing so much research on it now. So that's great. And we're looking forward to hearing more and more as that comes out. And of course, the benefits you mentioned, so appealing. Like personally, I need more chill energy. And I know I met with you and your team at Expo West, and we were talking about, the customer and some of the situations that you might use it in, like a trade show event, like the networking events. Can you talk through some more about who the customer is and how you're hearing people use it to their benefit?
Right. So the customer, and look, fundamentally, anybody over the age of 21 who is seeking to capture a moment and take full advantage, right? So you could think of you could think of an executive about to make a presentation. You can think of a nurse on her way into a stressful day. You could think of a construction worker or anything in between. So what we find from our customers, because we speak to them regularly, it's kind of like what we were just talking about, right? It's this idea of intentional, chilled energy, right?
Excellent. Yeah, it's so appealing. Like I love that. Let's talk education. Always super important. We want people to know what they're taking, how to take it properly, and especially when you have ingredients that they might not be as familiar with. Like, how does the company, approach education with Feel Free?
So we hold education as an extremely serious responsibility for Botanic Tonics. We know that kava and kratom, these have not been mainstay grocery items, right? So a lot of people, when they see our product, they're encountering it for the first time, right? So education, it comes out several things. First and foremost, labeling on the product, because this is often the first time the customers will interact with us. So this is our chance to transparently tell them every single ingredient in the bottle, serving size, and how to use it, right? That's really important, especially for people that don't know what to expect. Look, we sell a strong product. That 2-ounce shot is a functional, effective product. You will feel it. And educating the customer about what to expect, we think is a critical component to give them the information they need to be able to use it successfully.
Yeah,
So in terms
absolutely.
of education, you mentioned some of the universities that are doing some fantastic research on this. We collaborate with many of them on on our own projects, and we support some of their projects, like University of Florida. We're working with Princeton and the University of Colorado. And all of this comes down to generating the information, the scientific information. We're talking about filling in the gaps, right? Look, the last 20 years, NIH has spent over $100 million studying these plants, right? Distributing to universities. And we've learned so much, but there are still gaps. So not only are there gaps in the science that we're working to fill, but a lot of that new scientific information has not filtered its way into the consumer information universe. So there's those two pieces of both doing real hard science and then also translating that and delivering it to people in a way that's understandable.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you were kind of mentioning, like safety is a primary concern with all products that we're ingesting. Can you talk to us about how you ensure the safety of the products?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, I mentioned one of our core pillars is tradition. So we put these products in the bottle very similar to traditional consumption amounts, and that's for both the kava and the kratom. In fact, we're actually fairly lower. So the kava, for example, one serving size, we have 260 milligrams of kava lactones, whereas traditional use cases 4 or 5, sometimes 10 times higher than that. But we don't think you need that much to get the positive effect of it, especially when you combine it with kratom. Now, on the kratom side, we use a little less than 2 grams per serving of kratom leaf material. That's about a bag of tea is about 2 grams. So the core of these traditional serving sizes is that we're giving you what has been consumed by humans for hundreds of years. Now, obviously, that's not enough, right? We want to provide more specific information. Some stakeholders like FDA and states have been curious about this as well. So what we've done as well is we have a whole scientific program, right? I'm talking chemistry, non-clinical, clinical, and behavioral. In fact, we published our first clinical trial in last December. So that information is already publicly available. And I talked about education. I talked about doing the hard science and converting it into actual consumer education. We are committed to publishing our work, so we have even more of that in the plans. You'll see from our published clinical trial, these are real humans taking our product at half, full, and double serving sizes, and they come in healthy. They get all of the standard physiological monitoring. They remain healthy and they leave healthy. So we're extremely confident. In fact, we've proven that our product is safe when consumed as described.
Yeah, excellent. And keep us posted on new science as it emerges, and we can keep sharing with our readers and our listeners. You
Uh,
mentioned FDA. Of course, there is a little controversy around kratom. FDA has had some things to say. So, what would you say to anyone out there who has some concerns?
Look, the controversy is real because the definition of what is kratom is so broad, right? Now, if the only kratom products sold in the United States were dried leaf, as is used in Botanic Tonics, I don't think FDA would have any concerns. But the problem comes where you have a product like ours, 2 grams dried leaf, very mild herb, you'll feel it, but that's it. Some other brands, maybe they do these concentrated extracts, and now you're looking at something where somebody took a cup of tea of kratom and they said, oh, I love kratom tea. And they go to the store, oh, there are these kratom pills. I'll take one of these pills. They may not realize that the pill could have 10, 20, 50 times the active ingredient. Then all of a sudden they feel sick and confused. And now I'm not sure what kratom is. It feels like it was good. Now it's hurting me. I think this is really the core of why there's controversy and why FDA gets concerned, because you have something where without proper consumer education, without proper labeling, without proper really understanding what you're consuming, people could take something and end up feeling a little too much and really not feel good from it.
Excellent. And we've been reporting on from the industry side, the associations kind of, looking to give guidelines. American Herbal Products Association just released a new guidance policy to clarify the distinction between the botanical kratom that you're talking about in your product, and then the synthetic kratom alkaloids. And I know you talk on your website about that a little bit, and making that distinction that your product uses the natural leaf kratom and not those potent extracts, like you said, and not those synthetic isolates. So that's yeah.
It's tradition and nature that we're trying to provide.
Yeah, so that's very important distinction for people to know when they're talking about kratom. So what's next? What's next for Botanic Tonics, or any new initiatives, or anything that's exciting you in this space that you want to let us know about?
Well, I'll tell you what, look, I mentioned at our heart, I'm a scientist, and we do some fantastic plant science around here. We are scouring the globe looking for botanicals that provide real functional benefit and considering how we can combine them. The process we're going through is so much fun too. It's such a pleasure to be here. We get to, it's not just, oh, picking these botanicals and throwing them together. We study them. We understand what are the chemical and physical characteristics of this. How can I combine this to put the right amount in a 2-ounce beverage without it all settling or without it degrading or with a good shelf life? So it's every step of the way, every botanical we look at, every combination has this unique set of scientific and technical challenges. But like, luckily for us, we got a fantastic team here. We have a R&D lab. I'm in Tulsa right now at our factory where our R&D lab is. We have a team of scientists that has become so familiar with how to move through the plant science process that it's this combination of art and science going on over here. And I think we're going to really surprise the industry with some of our combinations that are going to come out soon. A lot of it is going to include plants we've talked about, like kava, and a lot of it is going to include plants we haven't talked about. Maybe some you've heard about, maybe some you haven't heard about, right? So they're coming. We have a whole pipeline of candidates, and we should be we should be having some news soon, I'll say.
Ooh, I love it. Well, you keep us posted.
Oh, you'll
So
be the first to know.
yeah, I love it. Yeah, we want to share the news, and just, you know, the whole, how about the whole functional beverage space really evolving? You're bringing these exciting, not new, but kind of, you know,
New to
emerging
us, new to the
popularity.
new to this country.
Yeah. So what do you see kind of on the horizon, just in the general space, and how you're hoping to kind of play in this evolution?
Well, I think, Botanic Tonics is the proof of concept that these botanicals that, botanists have known about them for years, right? But the consumer, you go to the grocery store, what are your options? What flavor of caffeine do you want? What type of sugar substitute do you want? That's essentially what we're looking at. So Botanic Tonics, I think what we're doing is the proof of concept, right? But perhaps someone else can come along and figure out how to make an 8-ounce. Maybe there's some kind of solid food type product that could be produced. So we're really, this is the tip of the spear of reintroducing these traditional natural botanicals into our day-to-day diet.
All right, so before we part, just some final kind of takeaway messages. You know, you've talked about really some innovative stuff, but with these traditional herbs, why aren't other people doing this? Like, how are you leading this kind of cutting edge?
Yeah, I think the biggest part is that it's just hard. You have to really study the plants. You have to understand their properties. You have to study the supply chain, go back to the source of botanical origin. So one of the things Botanic Tonics has done, and kava is really at the center of almost all of our products that we're developing. We've vertically integrated. We own a large kava farm in Vanuatu where we study the botanical and we work with the local farmers and the local government and the local university. And we chemically characterize, we study how to grow these, we study how to extract them properly, right? This type of work, it's a tremendous amount of work that goes into this. We have a fully CGMP facility here where every step of the process had to be specifically designed for the characteristics of the plants we're using. We're a fully CGMP facility, right? So everything is documented, everything is controlled. And we think that's part of the reason why we're able to make the product so consistently at such a large scale. And again, that's why it's hard. It's difficult to put these naturally diverse plants into a consistent format. But I think the thing is, if you understand the nature of it, you understand the tradition of why it's used and how it's used, and you can scientifically combine those to create the function that you're trying to replicate from those traditional and natural sources, then you can end up with something remarkably consistent and just really an enjoyable product.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you're putting in the work because some chill energy is definitely something that a lot of us need in our lives. So good stuff. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been great to have you here.
It's been a pleasure, Maggie. Good to see you again as well.